The other questions are a bit more direct. They're like, hey, does anybody think that the markets are too saturated for marketing agencies? What they're really asking is, can I get any clients, or am I going to have too much competition? There's been a lot of buzz around in some of the Facebook groups and also in person regarding market saturation in terms of agencies and starting them. And a lot of the questions that I've been seeing are they're as simple as like, is the solar niche good or something like that? And people just asking if niches are fine. The other questions are a bit more direct. They're like, hey, does anybody think that the markets are too saturated for marketing agencies? What they're really asking is, can I get any clients, or am I going to have too much competition? And these questions aren't just being asked in groups. I think in the last episode, I talked to you, or talked to everybody about Lauren's coworker who has ambitions to start their own agency, and she asked me the same thing: is do I think the market is too saturated for marketing agencies? And there's a lot to kind of unpack there, because ultimately the answer is no. It's not. But the answer could be yes. It just depends on who you are, what you're offering, what your niche is, how are you different than other agencies out there?
Do you think that these are useful questions when people ask them? Like, what do you think when people are asking these sorts of things? I want your thoughts on it.
You remember, like in a few episodes, not a few, quite a bit of episodes ago, I coined a term. I called it a serial question. And so very similar to a serial murderer. So the definition of a serial murderer is someone who murders 3 people on 3 separate occasions. So when someone asks so how I do it is when 3 different people ask 3 of the same questions on 3 separate occasions, that's a serial question.
Well, okay.
That's a question that needs to be answered.
That's not a question about cereal. That's a serial question.
Right. Well, I would prefer a question about cereal than a question about bananas. So
yeah. I finished the banana.
Well.
All right. So what are your thoughts on it though? On these serial questions?
Well, the thoughts on serial questions are when people are asking them, I'm going to answer them on the podcast because I'm tired of doing it in text format. So I'll just link them to the episode. So for starters, regarding this specific serial question, if I think the markets are too saturated, or if anybody thinks the markets are too saturated, I don't think. I think markets are very rarely saturated. I don't think. I think that it can only be like truly saturated, maybe in like a physical product space, but in a service space, I don't think so. Because there's always an angle or a niche within a niche. And this is just the first point. I have plenty more of why I think this way. So even in the lawn care industry, if you wanted to start a lawn mowing business, guess what? Lawn mowing companies are a dime a dozen, just like agencies.
Yep,
you can make an argument.
Zero entry.
Yeah. And then that's a good point too, is like industries that have a very low barrier to entry, have a lot of saturation. So lawn mowing, and then also agencies. It doesn't cost any money to set up an agency. Episode 1 plug. There's also another episode in there too. I can't remember, but it's when you're in lawn care, for example, yet that's a niche in its own. Obviously it's an industry, but then there's a niche within a niche. You can do like one of our clients who only does organic lawn care, and that's it. So now he is taking lawn care in general and just segmenting it into this very specific portion of it. And he's got an $8 million business, or 10 million. I don't know. It's up there. It's big.
It's a big boy.
Sure. And he's a CEO, and he didn't even start it. Like he, as far as I know, he came into it. So like, that's how big and large this business is. So if you're ever thinking of a niche is too saturated, one of the questions you can ask yourself is, how can you separate yourself from what everybody else is doing, or be more specific? When I first started Evergrow, I was going to be in kind of like the home services, like contractor niche. And that's an industry on its own. But I wanted to be more specific than that to separate myself. So then that's when I turned to landscaping and lawn care specifically. And what happened there is basically my competition went from 1,000 down to 100. And when let's just say you're not at the home services or contractor niche and you go up and you're just a general marketing agency, now you're at 1 million. Your competition's 1 million. So as you continue to go down, your competition starts to decrease. Now keep in mind, so does the client base. However, it's easier. It's going to be way more beneficial if you start super niche and then spread out, because now people are going to be more likely to come to you with such a hyper focus on a specific niche, which is also going to be very important for you to double down on. I believe that's episode 40. So if you we're going to look right now, actually. Yeah. If you go to episode 40, how to pick your niche for marketing consultancy or consultant agencies, we talk about like how to determine which niche you should go into. And spoiler alert, it's one that you're going to double down on and be familiar with, not just one that everybody else is doing.
Can you like pause your brain for just a second and then ask me what I think about people who ask these sorts of questions?
What do you think of people who ask these sort of questions, Cody?
Thank you, Jake. Good question. I think that the sorts of people who are generally like broadly asking these on like a Facebook group or in a forum on Reddit, that sort of thing. One, I think you're not very serious. I don't mean that to attack you. Like, I'm not trying to be aggressive and then say like, this isn't malicious intent. It's that there are people who are already doing it. They're already going after it and they're not asking about it. They're just doing it and they're finding out. So once you get to that group, that's when you're actually in it. That's when you're serious. In that space, I think everything gets less competitive because it could just be
in the mental mind space. Like if you just do it.
I mean, for the people who are actual doers, right? Because if you're nervous and you see, I see people talking about this all the time on social and they're saying that there's so many people in this niche. Okay, look into it. Like, I don't care who's talking about it, because if you just listen to people on the internet like us, that's a bad. But no, so for example, starting an agency, if you go to Reddit and you read through threads about should you start an agency, everybody's going to say no. But of course, everybody says don't start a business because it's already risky. It's not something that most people do. You need to have confidence in yourself that you're going to make it work. And then market saturation as an issue or something to be considered and taken into consideration. I'm not going to say it's an afterthought. There are more critical things to do and get to a point to first before you're seriously thinking about the impacts of market saturation on your business, especially if you've already done the things like Jake's saying. If you have identified a niche, you're niched down, you're set up, you're ready to go, you have a productized service, or you have, the service that you're ready to take to market, even they're not even productized yet. If you've gone that far, you're already way further than most people who are going to be asking these sorts of questions. Like, is it saturated? Are you ready?
I think a lot of people who are asking these questions too are the same people who are either contracting out their services and don't know how to execute it on their own, and or contracting their sales and having setters and closers bring stuff to them. And if you're in this category, Cody's talking to you. So I think it's kind of like, I don't know. You can do what you want to do, but this is kind of a warning for you. I'm not gonna lie. There's a podcast episode that we have planned on doing called "If You Outsource Everything, You Will Die." Not you, but your agency will die. You'll be fine. But
they'll
your
find
agency
the people. They'll find you, and then that's it for you. The agency police,
the Russian mob. No, I'm glad you brought that out because that's actually a callback to episode 43, which is what is it called? It's called 43, planning too much versus just taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an equilibrium that we kind of come to in that, which is like it's really important to plan and really important to look into things, as Cody is explaining. But then if you actually just do it instead of just wait until you hear what people say about it, you'll be light years ahead of people.
This is Jake and I and everything, like the banana, where he said like it's terrible for you, but he's talking about healthy foods, and I'm talking about like garbage foods, like I eat like cup noodles. It's like if you take the full perspective and you're like, you guys are agreeing, why are you fighting?
Yeah,
because it's fun and entertaining.
Yes, bananas are healthier than cup and ramen noodles. Absolutely. But they're terrible. If you're going to say I'm going to eat healthy food and you eat a banana, I'm like, wait, no.
Yeah, but for me, it's an upgrade from cup noodles.
Yeah, it's like going from cup noodles to like skinless buffalo wings.
Sorry, I froze you in a sec. I don't know if you could actually get back to your thought.
Oh, I can. Well, you stopped me at a good point because sometimes I just ramble. Randall, I don't know who that is. Sometimes I just ramble. So like, stop me when you need to, because if it's important enough, I'll come back to it. However, my next point was market. If anybody's talking about market saturation because you're hearing a lot about agencies getting into that niche, that means there's market opportunity. That means that if a lot of people are jumping to it, there's a ton of opportunity there. And you can take that with a grain of salt, but I tell a lot of people in like lawn care groups this, where they say like, hey, there's like, people mowing lawns are a dime a dozen. I'm just like, good. That means there's a ton of people that are paying for those services. And that's kind of where you go in to differentiate yourselves and establish yourself in a specific niche within a niche. Now, this kind of ties into the idea that everybody experiences churn. Everyone. So even your competitors in your niche are going to lose clients. We lose clients, and a lot of the times we lose clients because they can't take on the work. They go somewhere else, or they weren't big enough to hire us in the first place, and they couldn't afford us. Then when they get into a spot to where they can hire somebody, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to look somewhere else. Additionally, I can't tell you how many clients come to us and are not happy with their agency at all, and of course, they Google us. So if you listen to the last episode, focus on your SEO on your own site. You will pick up, if there's a ton of agencies in that niche, that means there's a ton of garbage in that niche too. Because the fact that you are able to just do things, like Cody was explaining, like just doing it and redoing the research and also learning your own services and being competent as an agency owner, you're already better than like 90% of quote unquote agency owners out there. And that's really all it takes. On that note, markets are typically saturated with garbage. So it's all I got to say is just don't be garbage, and you're going to be fine in a quote saturated market.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We're pausing just a second. I'm pretty sure that everything can be heard because the mic is just open mic and it's like everything here.
Oh,
so
this is a podcast.
Yes, we're recording.
Okay, I wasn't aware.
Don't worry, I can cut it out.
So
I can't type.
Oh, she can type.
You can type.
Oh.
You can't pick it up, can you?
No.
Okay.
I actually couldn't really pick up any of that sound through my desktop, but there's a bunch of shadows and I could see your eyes shifting and things like that.
Yeah.
So if anything, is only distracting you and not me or the listener.
Okay.
Cool. I ended with, I'll cut this out, but I ended with, markets are typically saturated with garbage. So just don't be garbage.
Okay. Yeah, I think market saturation, if we actually talk about it seriously now, because I do this. I feel like you're like, let's go straight to talking about this seriously. And yeah, that's true. But I also need to do like it's just who I am, to do the precautionary safeguards of, look, let's make sure that we do all of the PC, the politically correct, and get to the point of what's actually important here and get rid of everything that could be a misconception or miscommunication. If we actually talk about market saturation, then we have to talk about more than just market saturation. We have to talk about complexity of businesses. So any business with low startup costs are going to have high market saturation and high competition. Things that might benefit or like improve that would be if it's new industries, potentially shrinking ones, where it's like an aging population. So for example, because I'm in Japan, right? There's a lot of like arts and things that are just becoming really specialized where it's actually going to keep continuing, but not very many people are doing it. So that sort of thing is sort of a business opportunity too. That all of those sorts of things affect that. And then when your startup costs and just the more complicated everything becomes, the more stable your business is, as assuming that it's, doing well. It's like stable, assuming you're doing well, right? Like you're in it, you have staying power. Then those businesses have much less competition, less market saturation, because they're so much harder to get to that point. And that's why some people, and I'm one of them who can see it this way, is an agency can just be a stepping stone to a bigger business, because it's really just, it's simple, like cash flow easy. You learn a lot of the basic stuff that you're going to have to do for more complicated businesses, that sort of thing. So,
and you don't have to, there's low barrier entry. So you don't have to front, a bunch of capital or money to get started.
Yeah. Start on a Chromebook. Start on a Chromebook. But then after that, everything that has to do with market saturation, you can think about other things that impact it, such as, and I like to use Japanese as a prime example. When I think back to high school and how so many guys wanted to go pro at football, right? That's an extremely saturated market, you could say. How many guys out there wish that they could do pro American football? And how many are going for that? It keeps getting narrower and narrower the higher you go up. You get to high school, people go from high school to college. After college, they then hope that they go pro, right? But every year it gets more intense. And it's very intense. It's very hardcore. It's extremely competitive. That is extreme market saturation, I think. And then comparative things are also like musical artists, right? That sort of concept. They're extremely popular, and because of that, very saturated and high competition. Now, something that just seems very out there, such as learning Japanese, you'll also find people who just don't know much that say, yeah, but how many people are actually going to do that? The same way that they say about football players or musical artists, right? The difference is that statistically, it's actually not hard at all. If you're serious, you're like dead serious about, I want to go to Japan or do business in Japan or be a teacher in Japan, that sort of thing, there's a very straightforward path. And it's not complicated because not a ton of people are pursuing it. So that is an example of extremely low saturation, because I'm not saying it's one-to-one, but
you don't have to get creative. I think when,
yes.
I think in saturated markets, you have to be creative. And that's kind of the whole point of like picking a niche or like focusing on a specific service. So that was another point too, is landscaping is a niche within a niche. The niche is home services and contractors, and landscaping is a subcategory of that. Dude, I heard somebody in a Facebook group argue, like they were adamant that home services is not a niche, it's an industry. And I was like, What?
What?
What a
Like-
weird thing to be upset about. Can an industry not be a niche? Like, by definition, like of the word niche, like, yeah, it absolutely can be.
You just woke up in a rage that day. Like, all right, I'm picking something. I'm going to fight about it.
Yeah, he was upset about that. So, but another point of a niche within a niche is like if you have your industry niche or whatever your type of client you're targeting, if you only focus on like a very specific set of services too, that's a niche within a niche. You are separating yourselves from the agencies that do literally everything, and you are the experts on this one thing. And I can give you an example in the lawn care world. In the lawn care world, there are people who only do fertilization and weed control.
Mhm.
They call that lawn care, whereas like lawn maintenance is everything. That's like mowing and edging and trimming and things like that. To the homeowner, there's really no difference between lawn care and lawn maintenance. They say the same word. But we have a couple of very successful clients who only do the fertilization and weed control. And they have two types of clients. They have one client who likes to mow their own lawn because it's a fun Saturday thing for them to do. And then they have the other client who hires their mowing out to a mowing only contractor. And then they want someone who's hyper focused on fertilization and weed control and understands the sciences of it. Because what happens when you get with these agencies that have a ton of services is they're usually siloed into different departments.
Mhm.
And those departments aren't super, that if that agency's focus isn't on that one service, then the service offering becomes less valuable than an agency who only does that. That means everybody in that agency knows about that service. And the quality of it might not be as good. So if you're dealing with a company that only does fertilization and weed control, and that's their entire business model, I bet they have some secrets or some tricks of the trade that the lawn maintenance company who also does landscaping and hardscapes and mowing and everything like that probably isn't as attuned to as that fertilization company.
Mhm.
So when we first started Evergrow, when I first started on my own under the Evergrow name, I offered everything. Like I offered Reddit ads and I didn't even know how to run Reddit ads, but I was like, I'm going to figure it out if somebody wants it. But my bread and butter obviously was SEO because everybody loves SEO. It's a super high margin service. It costs you no money. And it's relatively simple to learn, at least front end SEO. I had a client on SEO, and then I had Into the Box who was on Google Ads, which is what I was pinging you about questions related to. But then when we partnered up, you're like, yeah, we're only going to offer SEO and ads, like no social media, like none of this, until like we kind of reach our market cap with just these services. And of course, I came back to you and was like, yeah, but we have to also offer website building because we can't run SEO and ads if a client doesn't have a website. So that came like our core services, which was basically like, hey, Evergrow Marketing, they're the people that handle your search engine marketing. Like if you want to show up on Google, call them. Where a lot of our competitors will offer everything. And we just don't. And we hear some negative stuff too. So like a couple of the negative things that we hear are where agencies where they'll offer Google ads. They'll say that the solution that they had when the ads weren't performing was to throw more money at it. And if you're an expert in Google ads, like we are, that's the worst thing you can do because there is a limit to how much you can spend in Google ads. And if you give Google $10,000, they will spend $10,000 regardless of how much traffic there actually is, which means your cost per clicks can go from $5 to $50 or $500. So it's important to make sure you're dealing with the expert in that field. Same thing with SEO. We had a different competitor who engaged in black and gray hat SEO, PBNs, private backlink networks, and what's the other one? Duplicated location pages. And I wrote an article in Search Engine Land about how Google targeted those after the December spam update. And we just had one of their clients come to us and say that the rankings have been tanking. And I said, yeah, I know why. Because this person is very vocal about their practices on YouTube. And then there was another agency who offered everything, and their social media ads weren't doing well at all. And I can't remember exactly the issue that they were running with, but there was another agency that just offered everything. So when a client comes to me and says, we want to do social media, like, we're not going to offer that until we're confident that we have nailed our services down, but we have a different service that we focus on. And if you want leads, then let's do that first. So that was a big tangent on, really focus on your core service offerings. And it's sometimes it's not in your best interest to diversify to capture the most amount of clients.
Okay. So here's a question.
Great.
If I'm not me, I'm someone else right now. I'm Tim. Yep. Bob.
Tim Bob.
Last name is Bob. And I'm interested in starting a marketing agency, but I'm concerned that it's too saturated. And I say, Jake, I'm Tim Bob, and I'm interested in starting a marketing agency, but I'm concerned it's too saturated. And then you say, let's say you're just feeling, snarky that day, and you're like, yeah, dude, it's super saturated. I don't think you should do it. What do you think what I do next? What do you think? One, what do you think is going to happen? And two, what do you think should or is the best way to respond or react to it?
What's the best way for Timothy Robert to respond to it?
Yeah, his name is actually Bob, not Robert.
Oh, sorry.
I do that.
Yeah, Tim. Okay, so if you, in this instance, if I was Tim Bob and I heard from a hypothetical me that was like, you shouldn't do it, don't do it. I think I would, if I was Tim Bob, I would say, I would say, why not? Mm-hmm. But this is just me, though. It's hard to get into their heads. But I think if I said you shouldn't do it, I think they might do a little bit more research and very topically, not super in depth, and then we'll pivot to something else until another guru YouTube pre-roll sells them on their paid course.
I'm still Tim Bob. What if I say, oh, okay, I'm not going to do it now because you said it's saturated? How does that make you feel?
I would say that they shouldn't start any business at all. They should go work for somebody.
Right, because that's weird. Because that's extremely bizarre. Like to think that. Why are you asking anyway? Right? I mean, if you ask, this is just a mere thing, right? You want to be told what you want to hear, which is it's going to be okay. It's not saturated. You can do it. And if you hear that, are you going to be encouraged to do it? Or what I think is more important is just, if it's the right thing for you, you're going to do it either way. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's saturated or not. It doesn't matter if it's complicated or not. You're going to, it sounds cheesy to say you're going to find a way. You're going to sink time into doing it because it's what you do. I think that's the important thing to remember is if you always just go back to whatever your default specialty is or where you put your time, and that sort of thing is like a marketing area. If that's kind of where you start to niche down, then you're going to just find yourself spending time there anyway. And even if it is saturated, you know more than most people because that's where you spend your time. And one, I don't think it's going to be, but let's say that it is. It just doesn't matter. It's not a determining point. That shouldn't sway you either direction.
I say this before, but it's I think everybody says this honestly, but if your primary goal was to make money and then you decided to start an agency, it's probably not for you. And what I mean by that is I started Evergo because I wanted to start an agency. I kind of envisioned this big office building with a bunch of people, and I thought that was cool. I also thought the idea of making a lot of money doing that was cool. If you don't care how you make a lot of money, whether it's starting an agency or doing some kind of e-commerce product or crypto or whatever, then I think what you need to do is take a step back and define what it is that you want to do with your life. What do you see yourself doing in 10 years in terms of work? Because there is no sipping on a beach, or there's no sipping cocktails on a beach without managing something, without having some kind of income.
Or it's after 10 years and that's, you finally got your big check, right?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe. Right. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah. When you sell. But I think it's really important to want to do the agency if you're getting into the space, and then think about the money later. And it's just I don't know how to communicate that to people who are just solely money driven, because I know who those people are, because I feel like I was that at one point and I didn't care how I made it.
I think this isn't a good match for that. If that's like your number one driver is money, don't do an agency. Like,
don't
go
into business. Like I don't know what to say. Like, invent something, I guess. But like, that's, I think if you're gonna invent something that requires you to be extremely creative, and that's just not a viable thing, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's very, I don't know if easy is the word, but we'll say it anyway. I think there's easy ways to make lots of money if money is all you care about. That's not hard. But if you start getting picky about those things, about how you want to make it, that's when things start getting difficult. So for me, the thing that was always big was I saw the computer thing, the work from anywhere, to have the laptop, take it anywhere sort of thing. And I wanted a combination of that and international business. That was always like my goal, dream, idea. And everything's actualizing now, which is amazing. But
you've already had some business talks in Japan that have worked out for you. Like, you're like expediting this whole Japan thing. And
we're trying.
Yeah, I'm based on what you've been telling me. Like, you're further. I think you're further along than you expected.
Yeah, I feel very.
It's still
lucky.
Very foundational, but I feel like the next time you go back, you're going to be way higher than what you thought you were going to be at.
Yeah, no, I 100%, because I'll approve or improve in my ability to. I've learned a lot from this, and I think the biggest thing that very few people are interested in business in Japan. I think if you're interested in Japan, you're interested not in business. You like anime, you like manga, something like that. I'm a weirdo because I was here for a little bit as a kid because my dad was in the military. So I think maybe military kid might be the exception. But even then, I think if they leave, it doesn't maybe stick with them as much unless they are also in the weed crowd of having the interest. I had a reason I was saying this, but I think I lost it. Why can't I do it? Why can't I just keep a track of okay. So the thing that has really been proven to me here, specifically about business, is that, and there's no way to explain it to people. I think they just have to come here. You don't get to just show up in Japan and do business. And that's the best way I can say it and the simplest way I can describe it. You need introductions, and relationships run deep here. It's the same everywhere, right? On some level. But I think especially in America, just because of the strength of individualism and the resistance of the American dream concept, that you can just kind of drum up business. You don't have to know people necessarily. Of course, there are limitations on what you're going to be able to do, and you'll do better if you do know people. But you can come off the boat and just get to work, right?
Episode 11: chase relationships, not money.
Yeah. So you have that in the U.S. It's an immigrant country. If you want to do whatever you want here and you're able to make it a viable business, then you can. And you can do that from the second you kind of show up. I think people, not, of course, not all Americans, but I think generally speaking, on the whole, they are kind and accepting and that sort of thing. But here, I've even been told multiple times now, just straight up that, look, introductions are important here. And if you don't get introduced to the right people, then that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've been introduced to the right people already.
Yeah, some. I mean, I'm doing my best, but it's brutal, man. Like but they're also very accepting of realizing, like, hey, Japanese is brutally hard. So the fact that you're even trying is like very cool. But
yeah,
that's an example of saturation, right? I mean, I'm here and it's like I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, where are the white guys?
Cody's like, I don't have much competition here.
We go out to a restaurant, we get our picture taken, Jenny and I.
So the term "I'm bigger" in Japan is like is funny because of height and also because you're white.
It's a standing thing for sure. I mean, maybe not as much in Tokyo and Osaka anymore, but yeah, I mean, if you're still going to the country and you know,
how tall are men there?
They're still tall. People are actually tall here. Jenny's like waving to me like, meh, like some are tall, some not, but yeah, I've seen, and it could be the city effect, but like when we were at the airport, everybody seemed very tall, but you
and I are the same height. I think we measured exact same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. What do you how tall do you call yourself?
I just say 6 foot, not because I'm technically not, like, you have to round down.
I'm 5'11" and a half.
Yeah, I'm 5'11". I can't remember if it's 5'11" and a quarter or 5'11" and 3/4, but I just don't care. Like, it's easier to just say, like, that's a lot of words.
Yeah.
I just say 6 foot, but it's not a brag.
Every time I say 6 foot, Lauren says, "No, you're not." I'm like, it's just like, she says it jokingly, like very joking, because that's what all the guys in the dating apps put. They always put 6 foot and they're like 5'9". Well, all the girls' profiles always say, "I want like someone tall, like you must be 6 foot." So like they always say, "I'm 6 foot." So when I say 6 foot, when I'm like truly not, then it's like, But
I'm glad I never dealt with that. And I wouldn't ever again.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, same. This episode it went from a simple question of, is the market too saturated for an agency, which we've covered quite a bit, and then it went into, I think if you're asking this question, you're getting into the wrong industry, or because this is a question, honestly, you should ask yourself. And if you feel like a market is too saturated to go into, that means the thing that you want to do probably isn't the thing that you should do.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe you don't think, maybe you think you want it more than you actually do.
Mm-hmm. Really what it comes down to is just you standing out from competition. And if you're afraid that you're not, then that's on you, honestly. You've got to figure out a way to stand out. Especially when I partner with you, I got so much confidence. Like I was like, especially in ad delivery, I'm like, we're going to crush everybody out there. So like when it came to like ads and like SEO, I just like went out there with an iron fist and was like, dude, we're the best. Like, I don't need to separate ourselves. What makes us different from other landscaping marketing companies. Like, we have the best ads and best SEO in the industry.
It's like when people ask me about business and stuff, like for any sort of new business inquiry, that sort of thing. I'm like, I don't know, talk to Jake. I don't know how to do that stuff. I don't know how to talk about it.
They talk to you. They're like, yeah, so I was looking about getting marketing. Nope, stop right there.
You're talking to the wrong guy.
No. We've had, sometimes I'm like, man, Cody does a lot of work. Like, you do all the operation stuff. Switching reporting tools, doing all the Stripe updates, the documentation and all that. I'm like, what am I doing? And then next thing I know, like I'm on like 6 hours of phone calls with prospective clients throughout the day. I'm like, oh yes, this is what I do.
The other critically important half of the business, which is making money. Yeah. It's yeah.
I come in, I'm like, what are your projects? Here are your timelines. This is when we're going to get things done. And then I'm like, all right, do all that work. And I just go, client emails. All right, let's go do it.
Those are cool two things that we could talk about. I think if people are interested, I don't want to do it just to do it, but one is our concepts and ideas on goal making and system development, that sort of stuff. Because I think we have unique takes on that.
Oh yeah, you don't like goals.
I hate goals. I hate goals a lot.
I love goals.
And then also, if people are interested in Japan thing at all, I can talk more about it. I don't. It's just one of those things that most people aren't. Not really.
Yeah, you're going to be offended if people write in, no, please don't talk about Japan again.
That's fine. That's cool. I don't expect it. And honestly, even Japan, they're like, they feel that way. You show up and they're like, wow, this is cool. Everybody's confused as to why I'm here. I even get asked that still. They're like, you're not weeb enough to be here. Like you, yeah. Why is your hair a normal color? Like, so I have to explain.
If they say that to me, I'm just going to say, why not?
Just, do like an All Might and be like, oh,
we were talking, Laura and I were talking about like Japan and their like weird culture where like you can't, it's like impolite to wear like shorts or like wear anything revealing, but getting naked in a hot spring with total strangers is completely fine.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, what kind of backwards logic is this? I always think like for a society that has, or for a culture that has a lot of like self-honor and preservation, they really are an offended culture.
Offended?
Yeah, like everybody, like they get offended at everything.
Oh, they don't though.
Oh, see, but how you describe it and how like we hear about it and like how they have like cultural norms and things like.
Yeah. That's confusing. I can understand what you mean because they don't expect these of anybody. Like they don't have these expectations of people who aren't Japanese is what it comes down to. Like you don't have to do any of these things. And that's why they just kind of see you as this novel, interesting foreign thing that's exciting too. But if you want to, like, if you're coming and then you're going to try to blend in and have it, especially like, I think, okay, I'm going to talk about Japan more. I
feel like whenever like Lisa has a question at the end of a call and you're like, no, I feel like our listener was just like, no.
Yeah, we're going to give it a shot. This might get us another 1-star OA. I think something I wish somebody would have told me, not because I did it wrong, but just to clarify and make sure that everybody's on the same page. There is a extreme difference between going to Japan for funsies on a vacation and going to Japan with an interest in business. And the expectations are completely different. If you come here dressed and ready to present yourself as though you're here for some fun, they're going to be very confused because the business culture is extremely conservative. So if you're going to do that in a business sense, then you need to be prepared. And I say that as someone who's in the startup scene. I mean, that's effectively what we are. We are in the small business, startup-y vibe. And it is way more laid back, but people still do wear suits every day. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm like, that's a lot of laundry, man. That's a lot of work.
What if we opened up a branch in Japan and like people kept wearing suits and we're just like we're like Chadwick Boseman and Black Panther, and he's like, we don't do that here.
we don't do that here. I have found people in this industry, there's a lot of similarities though. Like, yeah, I was able to talk to somebody who does effectively, not the exact same thing, but basically, I mean, the business model is different, but it's a digital marketing agency. And yeah, the vibe is pretty much the same. At least with it's not corporate. How do you describe the difference of like the bro-y startup agency vibe versus the clean cut, professional, not corporate, but what's the word? You know what I mean? There's a divide in the agency space between that.
I think I don't know how to describe the divide, but I know there's definitely been a difference in like agencies. So agencies have always been against the grain of like corporate America, even since like the 50s. Mm-hmm. It's always been kind of they've always done business a very unique way. But it was always more laid back, and it's gotten more and more laid back to a point where I don't think a lot of agencies will do the suit and tie thing, or even like slacks or khakis now. I just think everything is a lot more casual and laid back. But I do think there is a delineation between the clients that you work with. Like, I'm not going to wear this to a meeting with, I don't know, Chrysler or something, like a big company. And it's probably just a level of like who your clients are. Clients are wearing
polos
like
jeans.
Polos at best. Yeah. Like jeans and like a ripped shirt to the field. Like, so like when I wear this jacket I got from Shein for like $12 and like these, I guess I'm wearing a Lululemon shirt and a Lululemon pants, but look, I'm wearing UGG slippers. Look at this. Oh, wait, here you go. Yeah. So
very relatable.
It's my first pair of Uggs. They retail for like $130, but Lauren got them for like $30. Actually, she got them on Amazon.
Good time.
But yeah, I mean, this is like as dressy as I get on calls, and that's already more dressy than most of our clients. And now, if we were dealing with like Brightview, I think I would wear something a little nicer. I'd probably wear like a blazer, not even a blazer, just like a button up or a zip up, nice like North Face jacket or something. Mm-hmm. But that's as high as I go. Like, I'm not going to put on a suit for you.
Yeah, we went to Colombia. I'm in Japan. You're going to come to Japan too. We're starting to see more of the international culture or international business culture vibe. And you do see that, generally speaking, Americans are always more relaxed in dress and how they conduct business too, which I like, and I like it a lot. But I find I always resort to the tech billionaire default clothing of jeans, gray tee, navy blazer. If I have to, and people are cool with it because they're like, he's American, so he doesn't know.
You know, it's really funny. Yesterday we were on a call, just me and you, and we were looking at a video that we made for the franchise, a client that we have. And you were in the exact same clothes. It's like a gray shirt.
I think when I recorded that, it was like at 2 a.m. too.
Which is, it's 1 a.m. for you right now.
I was going to say, yeah, it's about that right now too.
I've always wanted to wear suits to work because I thought that was cool. I still kind of think it is, but I think the way that Americans dress, especially in agencies, is trying to portray a level of authenticity, whether it's intentional or not. And I think people like to dress. They like to dress up how they would casually, like if they were to casually dress up and go to a decent place or something where they don't want to look like total trash. And I feel like when I get on a call with like another agency for whatever reason, and they're wearing suits and ties, like I am immediately disconnected from them. Like I'm like, I don't like, you don't dress like this normally. I don't trust you now. And that's not a good thing for me to do, but it's just the nature of it.
Yeah. It's kind of the used car sales thing, right?
Yeah. It's a good,
I always describe it. Yeah. I always describe it as the second I'm expected to use a knife instead of just turn my fork sideways to cut meat, like chicken strips or something. The second I'm in that environment, I'm anxious and stressed out. So
we got to take you and Jenny to Manny's Steakhouse when you guys come up here, and that's a very fancy place. But it's not like dressed up like fancy like that. You wear something. I would wear this to Manny's. I have actually. But I am the most underdressed person there for sure. But I also don't care. The tablecloths are typically like the red and white checkered, so it almost feels like you're at a picnic in like a super fancy steakhouse, and it's just amazing. We'll take you there.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think we were actually done saying what we wanted to say at like 27-minute mark, and we just started going on.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
I actually think we started to round it off, and I think the listener was like, wow, almost over. And then they checked their time and they're like, oh, we're only halfway through.
Psych. We got you.
All right.
The unimportant stuff.
Now we're finished. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
See ya.